So the Tannehills reject also just opting out of leaving the territory of the state and, you know, as some Randians would say, going Galt, you know, opting for a trip to Galt's Gulch. They recognize that this can be a safety strategy, but it's clearly not a way to bring down the state. And instead, they have a quite different approach, which is to urge the power of ideas. Now, I'm all for ideas, right? I mean, this is what I spend my life doing, dreaming up ideas and communicating them. But the Tannehills, I think, still have to answer the question. We have to answer the question, what are the people with ideas to do? So we share ideas broadly, but as long as people who see the state as illegitimate are in a minority, what really are the options available to them? Now, so I think that people with ideas do need, in a very careful, qualified way, to seek to influence electoral politics. I think they should engage in ongoing persuasion, because obviously at some point, if a majority of people really do come to see the state as illegitimate, irrelevant, unhelpful, it's just going to become irrelevant in real terms. It's going to be very hard for it to maintain its power. People certainly, people who care about eliminating the state from their lives should create counter-institutions. They should participate in the counter-economy. They can operate underground and off the grid. John Robb's increasing discussion of the potential of dark nets to allow people to do this, you know, I think is very fruitful and interesting. But I also think it's important for people to try to create communities that put alternate ways of doing things on display, okay? I talked earlier about the importance of just letting people see alternatives, and I talked about this in the context of a world in which we had a mix of states and stateless societies, and the way in which a stateless society in such a world could enable people still living under the rules of states to see that there was an alternative, and that's a great thing. But I think it's also the case that even while there are no functioning full-scale stateless societies, putting small-scale stateless communities on display can be very powerful. And so I think that this is certainly one real advantage of the kind of activism that Patry Friedman and others have argued for in developing the work of the Seasteading Institute. So the idea here is that if we create seasteads or free cities, whatever you will, if we create a range of alternatives to the state that put alternate governance models on display, this alone can help in at least two ways to undermine the power and legitimacy of the current order. First of all, people will leave stateful environments and come to stateless ones if they can, or at any rate ones with less state power. And also, even people who remain within the boundaries of states will see that there are live possibilities, their imaginations will be transformed, and they will be more inclined to accept and indeed to work for alternatives to what the state does. Now, the Tannehills hope that people will simply come to ignore the government, to withdraw consent on a massive scale. I think there's something to that, right? I mean, if 90% of the people in the country simply thought the government didn't matter, there's a point at which it would, in fact, not matter. I'm not sure how likely it is that the state would let go without a fight, though, of course, the Tannehills are right that if it did want to have a fight, the fight would be costly. But in any event, it's right to say, I think, that over time, if more and more people simply came to see the state as irrelevant, to go about their business without paying any attention to it, it might indeed wither away. That's an exciting possibility, and clearly for the Tannehills, that's a crucial kind of activism to engage in. I think that kind of ideological activism designed to deprive the state of legitimacy is crucial. I do, though, urge again a consideration of counter-economics, of alternate communities, and of carefully constrained electoral activism. Certainly, you have to say that the kind of withering away that Tannehills envision is more likely than the kind of withering away that Marx and Engels envisioned, right? Because Marx and Engels, I think, have the less than ideal proposal that what we need to do first is to strengthen the state to break the power that the state itself has already given to the previous power elite, and then after the state has deprived the power elite of its power, then of course the state will abandon that power. I think that's let's say, naively optimistic. It seems to me that once the state has more power, it's going to be inclined to keep that power. So a strategy that doesn't involve giving the state more power, but instead involves depriving it of power and legitimacy, seems more likely to me to be effective. But the active delegitimation of the state through the creation of publicly visible alternatives and the active withdrawal of support and the willingness to bypass the state through the creation of private alternatives, these are crucial. Electoral politics can play a part. All in addition, I think, to the kind of ideological activism the Tannehills have in mind. Where the Tannehills are right, though, is that ideas matter. And the idea of peaceful cooperation is a truly powerful one. Anarchism is a vision of peace. That's what I want to keep underscoring. If you want to summarize anarchism in one word, that's the word, peace. So the anarchist ideal is inspiring. It's exciting to think, I think, that working together freely, people can craft an enormously rich profusion of alternatives to a world dominated by violence. That's the anarchist vision. As I say, it's a vision of peace, and I conclude this class by challenging you to help make that vision a reality.